Lately, everyone's been talking about bushcraft. Now, this is about, starting a fire in the rain and being able to build a shelter and survival skills. But hasn't scouting been doing that for over a century? Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk a little bit about that. That's the interesting thing between, the different things in scouting. Yes, we've been talking about that for over a century. All the different skills and stuff. The big difference between the two we'll get into, but different people will equate different things. Not all troops, not all crews are the same. They have different types of unit. Some units are very focused on camping, and some are very orienteering, some are very hiking, some are very canoeing. There's different kinds of troops. Some just do the minimum as far as camping. They still have those experiences, but they do a lot of neat things indoors. So finding a troop that fits what you like, that's the important part. But these skills are inherent in scouting. We teach knot tying and first aid and things that are very, very important for later in life. These are skills that are not actually taught at school. At school, we expect them to learn the basics, okay? Reading, writing, math, science, those kinds of things. STEM comes involved. That's school. Scouting, on the other hand, we teach scouts how to put up a tent, how to cook a meal, how to prepare a menu, how to run a meeting. These are skills that are learned in scouting. And a lot of times you'll hear adult leaders use the word bushcraft. This is also woodcraft, and it is important to understand that in scouting, woodcraft is a big deal. It's part of core things that really started scouting. When you go back to Ernest Thompson Seton, one of the founders of the American Scouting, you go back to his woodcraft Indians. Incredible. All of the different bushcraft that was going on then. How to build a wigwam kind of teepee looking fire. These are skills that are still a part of scouting, but it's not the only thing that scouting is about. Like I said earlier, different troops do different things. So that's the neat thing about scouting. Now let me be very clear about bushcraft. This is survival skills coming out of North America, Canada, and of course back in the day of all the different skills that were needed to survive. This is something that is very incorporated into scouting, but we take a different view of it. We use these skills so that we learn self-reliance and incorporate that into leadership. That's the neat thing about the skills, scout skills versus bushcraft. They are very, very similar, but we take a different view of scout skills than just being bushcraft of survival and that kind of stuff. Now the comparison between bushcraft and scout skills, when you get to something like fire building, they're very, very similar. In fact, a lot of the materials that scout skills has comes from bushcraft. Now that's the different things that you need for building a fire. So that comes from that bushcraft type of thing. And that's true for most of the scout skills that are out there. Now, scout skills that we use are more adapted towards not a survival situation. It's more of a ease of camping, being able to sharpen a knife so that you can use it for whittling, you can use it for shavings, for kindling for a fire. These are different than the woodcraft. Everything in woodcraft is really interrelated, and it really comes back to the survival part versus the leadership part. Being able to do the 7 knots that every scout should know, that's just knowledge that's important, and it will help a scout much later in life. Now, there's lessons to be learned. The actual visualization of knot tying is very important, especially for youth, so that they can actually manipulate in a 3D environment something that to make a knot, like a bowline or a square knot or a reef knot, same thing. The big point is being able to do those knots using that three-dimensional process of being able to tie the knot from memory. That is a huge thing, and that helps later in scouting. But in bushcraft, it's absolutely essential. Otherwise, your shelter is going to fall in. You're going to have problems. Your knots are going to not hold, and there's a lot of different things that could actually go on. In scouting, it's a safe place to fail. So if your knot fails, it's not like you're going to be drenched in water and it'll be ice cold or something like that. You're just going to have a small failure, and you learn from those. You learn more from a failure than you do a success. You learn by doing. That's scouting. Now, with scout skills, you're really learning activities that will lead into leadership. Being able to use the edge method and having a scout teach another scout how to do something is a huge leadership thing. And that leads into teamwork and a bunch of other stuff. So as far as scout skills, they're set up in a very safe environment. Whereas bushcraft is really for self-reliance and survival. These are skills that would be needed if you were in a situation, stranded somewhere in the wilderness. That's really what bushcraft is set up to do, is to kind of help you do those things. In scouting, the founder, Baden-Powell, BP as he preferred, BP was actually taught scouting skills by another military person that was with him in South Africa. Frederick Burnham actually taught Baden-Powell a lot of those bushcraft skills. That was something that was in the book that Baden-Powell was putting together. He was taught these things, and it really made a better scout for the military. And that's where that book started off, and then the rest of it's kind of snowballed from there. Now, in the United States, when it first started going, Ernest Thompson Seton was with the Woodcraft Indians, and a lot of the skills that were in that crossed over into the scouting part, and that bushcraft type of stuff and the woodcraft coming in, it was a natural to use those things as examples of learning skills that are not normally taught, and being able to have them learn how to teach those skills, to pass them on. And this was a critical thing at the very beginning of scouting. So yes, we have been doing it for over a century, Bushcraft is some of those things that actually is a part of scouting. Now, modern day bushcraft has a lot to do with, there's a lot of stuff on the YouTube and all the stuff on the internet and cable, and there's a lot of emphasis on bushcraft and survival skills. This is something that's very modern day appealing. Many very famous, like Ray Mars. You have who's done all these fantastic videos about bushcraft, and then you have Morris Kowalski, who was a prolific writer in his time, and he always said that. Now I'm trying to get the quote right. The more you know, the less you have to carry. That was brilliant. Okay, because if you know things, you don't have to bring them with you. So it makes a lot of sense. He was quite ingenious. Then, of course, you have the classic Bear Grylls and Les Stroud. It would be all too easy to think of scouting as nothing but bushcraft. But there's more to it, as we know as leaders. It's leadership, teaching others how to do skills. There's a lot more to scouting than just basic survival stuff. That's part of it. That's in it. There's even merit badges that talk about the different things that are what we consider bushcrafts. With scouting, we have technology. So there might be a way of checking with GPS to find out where you are on a map for orienteering. So that's part of what we do in scouting. We do teach compass and how to read a map. These are really important skills. And while we're talking about all these skills and stuff, if you're interested in finding out more about Ernest Thompson Seton, please check out that video and it will give you more information. Hey, before we go any further, I want to make sure that you know that you're invited to the campfire chat. This is a live meeting right here on this channel that we do every first Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a great way to ask questions and not just me, but a lot of the guests that we have on the fireside chat. Definitely check that out. Also, I want to thank all of the Patreon for all of their support of this channel. In addition to that, we have our own membership right here on the channel. This is a fantastic way to get involved on this channel. Definitely hit the join button. It'll give you a bunch of information that'll tell you a little bit more about that process. So definitely get involved. We're going to just jump right on back. Now, scouting's role today is more oriented towards conservation. That's a big part of it. When you're dealing with just bushcraft, again, survival skills, conservation is not necessarily the goal. We think of conservation as doing projects for the local forest preserve or doing things for our community. Conservation could be cleaning up lakesides and rivers and so on. There's a lot of that out there. Whereas bushcraft, it's survival. That's a little bit different, and you have to think about where scouting is and what scouting does and what scouting represents. And one of the things is we have to live by our scout oath and scout law. So that plays into it also. When you have those ethics, morals, you make better choices. That's just a natural result of what comes out of the core values of scouting. Now, in scouting, as far as the bushcraft is concerned with lighting fires, we might use flint and steel to actually create a spark in a bird's nest and be able to blow a little air into that and get a flame. We might even do friction, with the bow and the pin, and actually creating enough friction to create a charcoal or a coal that we can get a flame out of. That's important. So there's lots of different things that can be done. Even the fire sticks that they have these days, with the huge sparks that come out of that, it'll light up so quickly compared to what it was in the past. Flint and steel, that takes a little bit of talent to really be able to strike that, to get that spark to come off the steel. So that's a major thing. And but as far as bushcraft and scouting skills are concerned, they're similar, but they're different. And we take it a step further, trying to make it more about learning a skill, learning a thing that you could use for survival if you had to. But most of the time, it's a skill that they're learning so that they can teach other scouts and learn how to be a good leader. So that's the real difference between the two. We've taken that bushcraft even further than just survival skills. Now, there are loads of practical examples. You can just flip through the handbook and actually see all the different things that are out there. We do tent camping, where you go and you're not in a big camper with all the luxuries of electricity and things like that. Tent camping, where you have a flashlight and a tent. And then we even go a step further, and when we're learning about Wilderness Survival Merit Badge, you might build your own little lean-to and spend a night in that. It really is an enlightening experience when you have to go and sleep under the stars. That's a major thing. Order of the arrow. A lot of times when they're doing that, the scouts are left on their own, by themselves, out in the dark, and that's where you're spending the night. So it's a matter of having the right tarp and stuff like that so that you're not going to be soaking wet, but being able to spend the night on your own. It's a challenge. It really helps build that independence and confidence in your abilities. So, and it may not be just order the arrow. It might be just something you do as a primitive camping situation that your troop chooses to do. So there's a lot of skills that come from that, but a lot of it is self-reliance, being able to do something that most people can't and won't. So that's a big deal. That is a big deal. Now, here's some questions for leaders. When's the last time you actually cooked over a campfire? That is a skill that's kind of that bushcraft kind of thing. A pot of coffee on coals, okay? That's, versus a camp stove or some kind of hiking stove. These are basic things that just aren't out there for any other type of camping, okay? You can do these things, and it's amazing the skills that you can learn from that. There is some things called a silent campout. It's a real challenge, so that the scouts go and they do a camp out and they don't say anything. If they want to talk to one another, they have to write it down and then show it to the other person. That's an interesting camp out, being able to keep things quiet within the camp. These are little things that actually build leadership, self-reliance. The quietness allows animals to come and visit. You, in the middle of the night, you might look up and see deer in your camp, grazing on leaves or something. That's a wonderful thing, to see nature actually, because you're quiet, you're silent. They come out, and it's their home to begin with. You're just visiting. And what's neat about that is that's a good thing. You want that. They usually will not bother you. Usually, unless they're startled. If they're frightened, they can be dangerous. So that's the only reason you would make a noise or even turn on a light. That's the thing about it. You want them to be as quiet as possible, and quiet camp out. Something novel, kind of within the realm of that survivalist. A lot of times, if you're busy talking or building a fire or making noise, you don't hear other people looking for you if you're wanting to be rescued. So being quiet is a bushcraft skill. Being able to keep the noise down to nothing if possible. That's a very important thing about bushcraft. If you hunt, for deer, for food, if you're a hunter, you know that you can't just go into the woods blaring away because all the animals scatter. You have to be quiet. So the same thing's true when you camp. So if you want to see the wildlife, make it quiet. Of course, that leads right into leave no trace. There shouldn't be any way to know that you were camping there. That's true wherever you go. Camporees, campouts, wherever you go. Hikes, any of that stuff. There shouldn't be containers every few feet, okay? You shouldn't leave trash behind. You got to pick up after yourself. Leave no trace. And the biggest pet peeve is those little cellophane things on the back of the juice carton. Oh, it drives me nuts. Anyhow, leave no trace. That goes in with camping. That is a natural for camping. That way, the next person come there, they're like, oh, nobody's ever camped here before because it's so clean. That's a compliment. So that's what you want for the next guy. So what do you think about bushcraft versus scout skills? What are your ideas? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Please put it in there for our community so that you can share. There's no wrong answer. Scouting and all the bushcraft and all the survivalist stuff kind of goes together a little bit. So there's some crossovers. Okay, so that's the neat thing about this channel. We invite people to talk about the videos, talk about their experiences, talk about all the equipment they don't use. That's another thing. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But definitely research a little bit. I found it to be fascinating, all of the different people that are involved in it. And even our founder, Baden-Powell, BP, actually was taught these skills, okay? And some of that was natural to him, but a lot of it was brought to him. And find out some more history about scouting and how it all came to be. It is amazing. Speaking of amazing, you're amazing. Thank you so much for all you do in scouting. Please keep up the good hard work. And we are building a better America, one scout at a time. This is something that you and I have in common, where we are working hard to make sure America's youth get the skills they need. Believe me, they need them. So that is the wonderful thing. And keep up that good hard work. If you're interested in more information about Leave No Trace, check out the video right over here. Until next time, I'll see you on the trail.